Hi, I'm Brian Mertens, and today I'm going to answer a question about awareness. And today's question comes from Sandro Ponticelli, and hopefully I'm saying your name right. Um, the question is, do you have any routine to switch on your awareness? For example, when I'm outdoors, I rotate my focus on the items addressed in Jake Swamp's Thanksgiving, like the earth, the waters, grasses, etc., or in the relation between two or more items. Other times, for example, when I'm looking for wood to light a fire, I pay attention to qualities such as hot, cold, dry, wet, high, low. Best regards. So kind of looking at different ways of paying attention to the landscape, and the reference to Jake Swamp's Thanksgiving is just going in line with the Thanksgiving address. You look at all the different layers of nature, starting from the ground, moving up through the waters and the plants and the mammals, and you basically give thanks for all the different elements of nature. And so he's talking about how you can actually use that same model as a way to guide your awareness, that when we're going out into nature and we want to be paying attention for what's happening out there and really stretching our senses to be able to draw things out of the landscape, you can use that as like a guide to know, like, okay, I'm paying a lot of attention to the birds, but I'm not so much paying attention to the plants. And so that shows you the holes in your awareness. It shows you how to actually pay attention to the landscape in a holistic way. So this is a good question. I love talking about awareness, and I do, Sandro, have some regular routines that I use to kind of switch on my awareness to get myself more in a space to be able to engage with nature in a high quality way. So, I mean, I think maybe I'll just take you through like an outline of sort of what it looks like when I go outside, because actually the process of awareness for me starts even before I go outside. One of the sort of routines that I have is I'll actually, before I go out the front door, I'll actually look out the back window at the bird feeder to see kind of who's hanging out there, because I know that oftentimes if I sort of just barge out the front door and walk around, I'll scare the pheasants or the different birds that are feeding over there. So I always, even before I go outside, I always check to see what kind of information I can gather about what's happening out there, even before opening the door. And that kind of just gives me a way to begin slowing myself down and preparing myself to get out there without causing a huge ripple. And it also just gives me an idea of what's happening out there. So when I go out the front door, the first thing I do is I kind of just stand there for a few minutes, and sometimes I'll close my eyes and just listen. But I'll really just get into my senses, and that's sort of like a second chance to really tune in a little bit further out. Because when I'm just looking out the windows, obviously I can't necessarily hear anything, and I can't detect things as far away. So I do another one of those sort of awareness check-ins when I get out the front door, and that's an opportunity for me to start getting into my senses as well. And then as I'm actually moving around the landscape, whether I'm out tracking or just going to my sit spot, I definitely will incorporate like routine checks along the way, where I might walk, 10 or 15 paces, and then I kind of stop and I look and I listen. I think that's often a pretty effective practice for people who are wanting to increase their awareness of the natural world. You just notice more when you stop and take a few moments just to check in. And you can even go through those layers of nature again, you know, whenever you stop. That can be like an opportunity for you to work with that. And, you know, I think even just in general, just finding a place to not necessarily be moving around the whole time, but to actually just sit down somewhere and you know, have a regular spot that you just sit every day. There is an awareness that builds of that place over time, where you start to get to know the routine patterns. And so that, I would say that that's definitely one of my core routines that I do that helps me to switch on my awareness. And so those are a few different things that I think a lot of people find really helpful when they're wanting to increase their level of presence in nature, to really switch on their awareness. I do other things like if I'm really working on my senses a particular day, when I'm at my sit spot, particularly with my eyes closed, if I'm just listening, sometimes my mind wanders a little bit, as everyone's probably does, and so I find at the end of my sit, if I'm not happy with the way that I've engaged my awareness in the time that I've been out there, I'll take like just 30 seconds or a minute, and I'll say, okay, for this next really short period of time, I'm just going to put everything I have, I'm going to put all my focus into just being totally in my awareness. And I find that to be a really effective way to do it, to just kind of see how far you can push yourself and go into that, the most intense awareness that you can for just a short period of time. Over time, it'll become easier for you to access that awareness, and you'll be able to access deeper layers of awareness too. So it's kind of just sort of pushing that edge and then extending the time and extending the depth. So those are some things that you can work with, and if you have more questions about that, feel free to ask. One last thing that I will say is that when I actually get back inside, I think it's really important to have some sort of way of reviewing what you experienced out there, because it's one thing to actually pay attention and notice things while you're out there and be aware of the birds and the trees and the plants, but if you don't remember it when you get back inside, then that awareness isn't going to transfer forward into future experiences outside. You're not going to be able to compare activity, you're not going to be able to just kind of keep that pulse on what's happening out there. And so what I'll do when I get back inside is I have a little journal that I keep on my desk, and I just write down some different notes about what I observed while I was out there. And this can be things that I observed in the different layers of nature, from the water levels or the ground, you know, into the birds, something I was noticing with the bird language. And it can also be observations about myself and how well I felt I was paying attention, and what made it challenging for me to be in my senses that day, or what made it really easy for me to be in my senses that day. And so I find that working with that journaling process, once you get back inside, it just wraps the whole bundle together, and so that the next time you go out, you have like a new perspective, you have new challenges and new things that you want to gather information about.